In today's episode, we are talking about the myth of work-life balance and as an entrepreneur, how we're actually working 24/7, but how this is actually a good thing, how we can alleviate any sort of guilt that might be showing up. We're also talking about what soul-aligned marketing might look like and really that mystical, magical reason why certain marketing situations work for one person, but maybe not the other. So this is a really incredible conversation that I had with my new friend, Lucy Baum. You are going to absolutely love it. This has been one of my favorite podcasts to record because we're just talking about all the things and a lot of these intangible things that really truly matter. So sit back, pop in those earbuds, and enjoy this episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hair of the Dog podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Begley, and today I have a very special guest with me, Lucy Baum from ShineSparkL Marketing, ShineSparkLmarketing.com without the E in sparkle, but we'll get more into that in a minute. Lucy, now so nice to see you here in the podcast. Welcome to the Hair
Thank
of the Dog
you.
podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Of
So
course,
exciting.
of course. Yes, I can't wait to chat about this. Yeah, we're going to be chatting about, well, you guys are just definitely going to have to hold on and see, but you're going to love it, about all of these myths of work-life balance and marketing and just really all of the things we're going to be touching on today. But Lucy, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what your background is and what you do.
Well, uh, yes, so excited to be here and talking to your listeners. Um, my background is in marketing, actually. I had a career for 15 years in marketing. Before that, I studied psychology. So I think that made me, um, it kind of helped to get into the marketing field, knowing how to sort of read people, understand human dynamics and behavior. And yeah, so I was working in marketing for many, many years in another city in Toronto, Canada. And then when I became pregnant, I decided that I didn't want to work in that anymore. It was kind of a thankless industry.
Hmm.
Marketing agency is very stressful. And I always had this thought that there was something more behind what I needed to do with my life. And when I moved, my daughter was one, and my interest in photography had grown over the years when I had been exposed to photography through my work. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I moved home to my home city of Montreal, Canada, um, my husband upgraded my camera for my birthday. And so I decided to enroll in formal education to learn how to use it. And that turned into like university courses, and that turned into a 2-year commercial photography program that's offered here locally. So once I caught it, I hit the ground running. So I'm a wedding and a family photographer, but the marketing never left me. And I feel like I was well positioned to start a business because I had the business background already. Um, when 2018 hit, I became ill, and I spent many months being unable to work as doctors tried to figure out what was wrong with me. Um, and so I couldn't do much more than, so I couldn't shoot. I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't do any weddings or anything like that. It was kind of like having a gastro for 8 months, if any, or food poisoning, if anybody can
Oh,
imagine that.
that
It
sounds
was
lovely.
no, it was so awful. So I didn't really have bandwidth to do anything more than like lie on the couch and watch TV and scroll social media. And that's when I started to notice that a lot of photographers were asking marketing questions and were
Mm-hmm.
struggling with marketing. And a lot of time on my hands while going in and out of doctor's appointments, hospital visits. And I started to respond. And people responded to me. They said, this is a very common sense approach. You've made a lot of sense. Marketing is so hard for me. And eventually I started to repeat myself on these posts so much that I just decided to create a blog. And that's how my first iteration of ShineSparkL was born. I named it Marketing and Business for Photographers. So I could be like super literal about what I did.
Yep.
Like there's
Yep.
no mistake. And and then it evolved from there. So eventually, it turned into a website. I got treatment, thankfully, and I'm better now.
Good,
Um,
good.
but then ShineSparkle marketing was sort of born at that time. And back in earlier this year, I rebranded to ShineSparkle Marketing from Marketing and Business for Photographers.
I love it. I love it. It is crazy how our path like twists and turns, and like I really had no intention when I started my photography business, gosh, 13 years ago, that I would create hair of the dog and be here and do this, and it's crazy how these different things happen in our life and just kind of like takes you down this path, and all of a sudden you're like, "Huh, how did I get here?
How did I
It's a
get
good
here?
spot." I bet
Well,
but how
it
did this happen?
Well, it was kind of funny because when I finally sunk my teeth into photography, like so deeply,
Mhm.
like I just hit the ground running because I knew it was right. But then I thought to myself, my God, I've spent half of my life in marketing, which, like I said, was a little bit
Mhm.
thankless. It was a kind of difficult
Yeah.
environment to work in, high stress, high intensity, always being, accountable to your clients.
Yep.
24/7 kind of thing. We'll talk about that. Um,
Uh-huh.
but I thought, did I waste all of this time that I could have been, you know, being a
Right.
photographer? And now I've realized that the marketing has come back to be kind of a superpower because so
Mhm.
many newer photographers struggle with it. And I don't really struggle with it. I actually embrace it. I love it.
Mhm.
And I love it outside of the agency,
Yes,
so the
yeah, when
principles
especially
of
when you can be a
marketing.
little bit more creative with your own marketing and your own business,
Yeah,
and I think there's a double-edged sword here. So, yeah, you get to be more creative, a little bit less stress, but it can also be slightly more stress because your grocery bill determines on your marketing, and it's so close to you. I know I've heard from some photographers, they're like, I can sell things, I can market, but when it comes to marketing me and my
yeah,
business, like it becomes a personal thing that we're putting ourselves out there, and like we like to try to make it mean if somebody doesn't choose to work with us, then we're taking it personally as like they're rejecting us personally as a human, which
yeah.
well, maybe it's just not the right time for them to get photos of their dog.
It's so true when people are hired to do a job, when I was hired
Mhm.
in marketing, I could do it because somebody gave me a job description and told me
Right.
exactly what I had to do, and I did it.
Yep.
But when it comes to your own marketing, I recognize that that's a huge obstacle for many photographers. I often
Mhm.
say, like, um, when photographers are talking about their pricing, I say that they're pricing their insides
Yes.
instead of their businesses.
Uh-huh.
And when you try and put a price tag on yourself, what do you think is going to happen? It's probably going to be a low price because of your
Uh-huh.
mindset. And I think we're going to get into that a little
Yep.
bit
Oh,
later on
yeah.
too. But it's a huge obstacle for us. So I do have like a strategy around that. Is
Mhm.
when we talk about what we're doing, but then we talk about it in relation to the business. So if I say I'm pricing myself, that's not quite right. The business
Mm.
is setting
Mhm.
prices, right? So if we
Mhm.
if we try and remove it to be a little bit more objective, it can be really helpful, so it's not just me and my,
Mhm.
reputation on the line and my personal, like everything that's me is on the line, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
I love that. It's similar. My mentor always says too that like to ask yourself, which is a great way to kind of switch your mindset of doing the things that we need to do in our business. Like maybe the things that aren't fun. Maybe we're still scared of this marketing, or we're still like feeling nervous about the pricing, or whatever it is that we've been avoiding. But asking ourselves, what does my business need of me?
right.
Where we're taking it off us. Like if I like, what does the business need? If I am looking at the business from the outside, not looking at me from the outside, like looking at the business, what does it need from me?
Yeah,
How do I need to show up for the business? And the same thing with then for our marketing and and talking about our business, like to take the focus off us, because I think we get a lot of self doubt when we're like, oh, I want to say the right thing, or how are people going to receive me, and instead focus on our client that we're talking to, whoever we're marketing
right.
to. Like, can we put ourselves in their shoes? What do they need to hear from the business, not from us, so it kind of can help give that little bit of a a safe space where it's not so
Yeah.
much like our raw emotion, where we can look at it a little bit more objectively.
It's absolutely critical for us to do that. I mean, if you were hired by a photographer,
Mhm.
say to be their employee in a studio, you'd have no problem giving their prices, right?
Yeah.
You'd have no problem stating the policies, charging extra for whatever late fee
Mhm.
or whatever it is, right? But as soon as it's you trying to do that, it becomes this, monster in the
Yes.
room, and that's I think why the approach of Shine Sparkle marketing can be a solution to some in terms
Yeah.
of how I've approached the philosophy of it. Hopefully sort of helping people understand that it's not the monster in the closet that you have to like beat back, you know.
Right, right, exactly, exactly. Well, as you were going through your rebrand, you kind of came up with a 5 pillar marketing approach. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that came to be and what those pillars are?
Yeah, so when I started in 2018, it was really responding to the needs of the photographers that were out there, answering their questions, and then sort of understanding where they struggled most. Marketing plans usually is the biggest one. A
Mhm.
business plan, sort of an idea or a blueprint of where you're going, and then as I went on, it sort of stayed as a side hustle because I was focusing on my wedding and family photography
Mhm.
business, and I was also working part time in the nonprofit sector. So it kind of stayed small. And then in July of 2022, I had what I called a night epiphany. It's like my intuition talking to me because
Uh-huh.
when I can't sleep at night, this is when all these things come into my
Uh-huh.
brain. And I had this thought that um, marketing and business needs to come to the forefront. And I can't explain why at that moment it
Mhm.
happened for me, but I listened to the intuition, which is part of the pillared approach,
Mhm.
and I started down a pathway of rebranding. And I didn't really know what I was going to find there, but all I knew is that I needed to do something different. And so the first thing that I did was to really try to reflect on what it was as a reality. So I looked at, what I had built. I looked at the blog posts I had created, the website, and all of that. I did a DIY. I did everything
Mhm.
myself. I
Mhm.
just put
Yeah,
together
as
a
many of us
Squarespace
do when we
template.
start off, yeah.
Exactly. I had gone through a rebrand with a designer for my photography business quite a few years ago, but for this one, I kind of felt like,
Yeah.
just gonna bootstrap it, right? And as I went along, I kind of noticed a few things. I noticed that my voice was very masculine in my like logo and the, sort
Mm.
of the website
Mhm.
colors, the way I spoke to people. And it occurred to me that, marketing is still, anyways, the traditional marketing
Mhm.
landscape is still very much a man's world, right? And as I was a young woman starting in marketing, I had a lot of incidents where I was asked to
Mhm.
make coffee. I was
You're
a
like, "Well,
yeah, I was a project manager.
I'm not the, like, intern assistant." Like,
Yeah, I
"Hello."
was like, "I'm coming into the meeting to speak on behalf of my department.
Right.
You could get your own coffee." But I did. I experienced that, and I think that my approach to marketing became very masculine because I was sort of
Mm.
silently fighting that fight still.
Mhm.
And I realized that I wasn't doing myself any favors, that it was sort of coming from the wrong place. And so as I moved on to thinking about that a little bit more, I was listening to an audiobook, and it was talking about an Eastern philosophy of the five koshas. And the five koshas are our layers of being. So
Mhm.
from the most tangible, which is our body, to the least tangible, which is our intuition. And all five, so body, mind, energy or soul, um, intelligence or wisdom, and intuition are what make us up as human beings, right? So we all have these five components and we can't sort of take them away from, we can't subtract one,
Mhm.
right?
I
They're
love that.
they're there. And as they were talking about the soul energy, I just had like this total aha moment that that is our brand for our business. It's the energy wrapper.
Mm.
So when you have a business and I have a business, you have a camera, I have a camera,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
we all have the same education with that camera. What makes us different? And it occurred to me that it was really the energy that we bring. And brand is so hard to define.
Mhm.
People say, what is branding? Is it a logo? Is it colors? Is it people just don't seem to grasp the concept, like when we think of big brands, we can easily kind of say, yes, I understand. They're very recognizable. But how do you create one of your own when you don't have
Right.
like a marketing
Right.
team?
Mhm.
Um, if we think about it as the energy. And so then all of a sudden, the five koshas became my five pillars of marketing. And they're not even of just marketing and business, but they're of our life because
Mhm.
they're
It's all
reflected.
intertwined as a
Yeah, all
entrepreneur.
intertwined. Exactly. It's all
Yeah.
intertwined. So the the mind and the body are pretty self-explanatory. The energy is the brand of our business. The intelligence or the wisdom is the operations of our business, and the intuition is the creative dream work. We are all creative
Mm.
entrepreneurs, photographers with a vision, wanting to put that creativity forth in the world. And so I was like, that's it, and it just came barreling down on me. I was doing a fitness walk, and I was
Uh-huh.
like, oh my god, this is
Like, I
it,
need to write this down. I need to
yeah,
write this down.
I know. And so then kind of ShineSparkL was born out of that epiphany right there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that. I think those kinds of situations, I know they've happened to me on occasion. And it's just like straight magic. You're like, where did that come from? Because that did not come from me. It just like boom.
Yeah, it's just there. And
Hmm.
somehow the puzzle pieces came together.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Have you read Big Magic? Elizabeth
Yes,
Gilbert?
I
Yeah,
have.
it's one of my
Yeah.
favorite books.
Yeah,
I love it.
it's a good one, and it does talk about that magic, like,
Hmm.
really well. It's that intuition, I think.
Yeah. And if you guys are out here listening, you're like, well, I've never had the lightning bolt intuition. Like, it's coming. You will. Were you in the habit, Lucy, prior to that of kind of like asking for input from, your intuition and universe or God or whatever you want to call it? Was that something that you were kind of used to putting out there prior to
Yeah,
doing it?
yes, but the caveat is that I didn't really recognize it for what it
Mhm.
was until I had my, Shine Sparkle
Mhm.
moment, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
For many, many years, I have followed the Artist's Way, Julia Cameron, for journaling every day. And you guys could look that up. It's an older
Yeah. I'll
book.
have to look that up. I
And
don't know that one.
I started. She has something called the Artist Pages. I think you can't quote me that
Yeah.
for the actual name. But what you do is first thing in the morning you write a certain number of pages. I don't really respect a particular length,
Uh-huh.
but because what it does is help you just get all the stuff out in the
Mhm.
morning, and then it primes you for the rest of your day. And so I feel like I was kind of talking to my own intuition when I talk, when I journal. I talk to
Uh-huh.
myself
Mhm.
essentially, and so that already kind of left me open to a few things. And then the other part of it is that when I go to bed at night, I seem to have like I'm probably one of a million where everybody's got these thoughts churning in their head,
Mhm.
like as
Mhm.
soon as you lie down and you're like, I want to relax, like your brain is like going on full. But the thing is that it's not necessarily your brain. If you are able to relax that voice, then there's something deeper going on.
Mhm.
And quite a few years ago, when I did the rebrand for my photography business, a huge idea just threw itself out there in my head at night. And it was so powerful. It like literally sounded like a voice in my head that my eyes flew open and I was like, what? Where did this come from? I was sort of asking myself a question. I'm like, what is my purpose? What am
Mm.
I supposed to do here? And there was an answer, and it was like, wow. Um, and then that's what kind of started a deeper relationship with my own brand, with my own photography, and what I want to
Mhm.
get out of it, and how I want to serve clients. So I have always sort of had those moments, and I've tried to bring myself closer
Mhm.
through journaling,
Mhm.
um, but I haven't. but now with ShineSparkL, I feel like I've been able to give it more of a voice. Like it's more concrete in my life that I now seek my intuition
Mhm.
versus just waiting for the lightning bolt. Right? I'm priming the lightning bolt, so to speak,
Yeah.
and everybody can do it. I'm absolutely certain of that because we all have intuition. So it's just a matter of being closer or further away from your own intuition.
Mhm.
We block that a lot,
Oh,
right?
yeah, 100%.
Especially as women, we block it a
Mhm.
lot, so like an example in marketing is that we don't listen to the red flags when they're presented to us, so we're like, it's all business. I need income, I need revenue,
Mhm.
so I'm going to just ignore that little voice that's saying, don't take this client on,
Yeah,
red
yep.
flags. You feel it in your gut, and then and
Mhm.
then you get embroiled into a conflict of some sort, and
Yeah.
it yeah, that's what happens when you ignore it.
Yep, I love it, I love it. This is kind of going off on a little tangent, but do you have any advice for people for, kind of telling the difference between the intuition red flag versus just a, "Oh, this is a scary step, but it's the right next step." Do you have a way
That's
that you can, like, tell the difference
ooh,
for you?
that's a great question, actually. I wrote a blog post about it. I think the title was something, "When to Not Run, but to
Mhm.
Sell," right?
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of blog I see a lot of posts on social media where somebody's like, "Oh, the client asked for this or more time or extra outfits or add grandma and grandpa," and people are like, "Run." Run. And I'm like, why? That's like a regular business question. That's
Uh-huh.
not, you
Right?
don't have to run. I think it's a series of steps that we have to go through. I think that if we can be honest and true to our intuition and listening to it, then it will
Mhm.
tell us, right?
Mhm.
It will tell us whether or not this is just something I'm avoiding because
Mhm.
I don't know much about it versus like really truly I don't have a fit with this person, and
Mhm.
and then also recognizing by gaining knowledge, right? So if you learn about marketing, then you will know when it's a situation where it's like more of a gut feeling versus a business transaction, right? So if you read any book on selling, Zig Ziglar,
Mhm.
Dan Kennedy, these sort of historic
Right.
greats who
The
have written
classics.
these books,
Yeah.
yeah. Selling is not without its ups and downs, and it's normal to have objections. It's normal to have questions. It's not like as soon as somebody asks you something, you're like, "Oh my god, I can't do business with them." Right? And it's about
Mhm.
recognizing that because our fear guides us very heavily in this profession, I find.
Mhm.
And we have to start recognizing what is actual lack of business knowledge or process versus real red flags. So it comes
Yeah.
with a little bit of practice, a little bit of education, but we all have the ability to do that. And I think on some level we already know, but
Mhm.
it's
Just don't
scary
wanna
for
trust
us.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. I love it. So good, so good. So one of the other things we wanted to kind of touch on too is this whole myth of like work-life balance, because I'm sure we've all heard it. We've all been seeking it out of like, oh, work-life balance, work-life balance. You have a little bit of a different take on that.
Yeah, I it's funny, I seem to have a different take on a lot of marketing stuff, and maybe that's the refreshing part of it all,
Right.
right? Um, yeah, the work-life balance. I mean, we hear it all the time, and for us as women as well, right? Trying to balance
Mhm.
career and family. I mean, it's ever present, right? And
Mhm.
when I've read a lot about the topic over my years, but again, it kind of crystallized with putting more thought and reflection into the Shine Sparkle marketing business and brand. Is that really we're going about it the wrong way? So I watched a video by the same author of the book that I had been reading about the five koshas, and he said something funny. He said he was speaking to an audience. He's like a guru, and
Mhm.
he said, "Do me a favor, leave your body for just 1 minute right now. Just I'll wait. Just leave and then come back." And I'm like, Okay, yes, that's a good point. We never really think about it. We can't ever leave our bodies. The
Right.
only time we really ever leave them is if we're dreaming, for example, at night.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, we can't leave our body. So it was curious to me then that we separate pieces of our life, like work and
Mm-hmm.
life. Um, so I guess today's workplace and landscape is a little bit more fluid, but back in the day of the 9 to 5, even, just a few short years ago, we would go to work and it's like you suspend your life
Mm-hmm.
until you come back from work. So life happens, between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. and then like from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's really sort of a very surface way of thinking about it. So as I got deeper into the whole Shine Sparkle philosophy of the 5 pillars, I realized that it's not really about work and life, because when you say balance, then you're seeking the balance, right? And that means you may not have it. So if you use a photography analogy, if you've got your camera on a monopod, you're
Mm-hmm.
constantly balancing that monopod. But if you put it on a tripod, you don't even have to think about it anymore, right?
Right.
Um, so in a dance analogy, maybe a ballerina on point has it's the beauty of the struggle of the balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if we were on point 24/7, that would get pretty exhausting, right? Even for
Uh-huh.
a
Right.
ballerina, she can't really sustain it for very long, right? um, so it's really not about balance, but I think it's about steadiness or steadfastness. So
Mm.
create a tripod of your life, and that's what the 5 pillars kind of do. um, so I just had a total mind shift when it came to that. I'm not really working and living. I'm I'm actually living out my life's work. This is what we are
Mm.
actually doing. So
Mm-hmm.
I came into this earth as a Lucy, and I do certain things. I have certain personality traits. I have a brand, right? I have a soul and an energy that wraps me, and you have a different soul and
Mm-hmm.
energy. And you have a life's work, and you're living it right now. And I'm living mine, and we are all living our own life's work. And so in service of that life's work, we are working 24/7. So, and everything is important. And there is no, slog. It's not like
Yeah.
like I got
Right.
to drag my butt to work. Everything I do is in service of my life's work, and my life's work is of service to others. So
Mm-hmm.
when I'm sleeping, I'm not actually fully, I'm not just not there. It's an active rest and recovery, and I'm synthesizing all the things that I've learned today. If I learned a new photography technique, if I learned a new marketing technique, it's all being cataloged in there, and I'm working, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when I go to bed at 10 p.m., I'm not like, oh, I should have stayed at the computer editing longer, right? I'm actually still working. If I go and do a fitness routine, oftentimes, like my brain does this too, right? I'm like, oh, I'm gonna push off the workout today, right? Um,
Guilty.
yeah, I know it's hard, but now I consider it part of my life's work. I
Yeah.
have to have a healthy body
Mm-hmm.
in order to, I mean, a wedding, for all the wedding photographers out there, they understand how
Mm-hmm.
difficult it is to do a 10, 12-hour wedding day. My body needs to have rest and recovery, massage,
Mm-hmm.
physiotherapy, working out. That's all part of my life's work. So
Mm-hmm.
now I can take away the guilt of that too.
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
if I have an off day and I go shopping, for example, so people are going to be like, "Oh, so can I go shopping?" And that's part of my life's work. And you know, obviously, there's a line where it falls into excuses, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But overall, if I go shopping or if I need to sit down and watch TV, um, and just binge watch my favorite show, that's probably uh, something in my intuition telling me I need to take a break
Mm-hmm.
from sitting at the computer and indulge in something that's related to my self care, or I need to turn my mind off because some idea that big magic is about to come,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we respect that and we feel that everything we do is working 24/7, but it's working on our life's work, then we may have a different perspective altogether on everything we do. So then you can remove all that guilt, right? So if you take time away with your family, if you take time away to work out, you're not actually stepping away from the business, right? You're enhancing the business. It's part of the bigger picture, I guess you could
Hmm.
say.
Oh my
So I'd
gosh,
like to
I love
think
this.
that, yeah,
Yeah.
I'd like to think that I work 24/7, and it's beautiful because then I've got my pillars that are supporting me, and I don't need to struggle for balance. I have a steadfastness with my tripod of 5 legs,
Hmm.
of 5 pillars, and that couldn't be more steady, right? So then I'm not fighting for balance anymore, and the fight for balance is what takes up a lot of our brain space, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's it. I want to stop the struggle.
I
I
love that.
encourage everyone
And
else
I
to do the same.
Yeah, I think the guilt piece is what leads to so much of that struggle because, especially as a mom, it's like you feel guilty when you're working, you feel guilty when you're not working, you feel guilty all the time. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
you had a kid. Here's a side helping of guilt for the rest of your life. Um, so by looking at it this way, it does. It just alleviates like, no, this is all part of it. Like,
Oh,
I
totally.
firmly believe that I'm living my life's journey, purpose, work right now. And part of that was my family too. So when I'm working with them or doing things with them, it's part of the whole, like, none of us were put on this earth just to run their photography business. Like,
Yeah.
we were put here to do
Feels
that
that
in
way
sometimes, yeah.
sometimes.
It
Yeah.
does it to do that in accordance with all these other things that make us us. Do you have any sort of, like, markers so people, because I know sometimes people might be, if they're listening to this, they're likely have photography as piece of their, creative soul that wants to be expressed on this planet. But are there any kind of markers of like, oh yeah, you are on the right path to like living your purpose versus like there's something else that you should be doing and maybe you're just like drowning it out of the expectation of my family said I needed to be a lawyer and now I'm doing this, but I know there's something else for me. Like, are
Yeah.
there any guideposts people can kind of look for?
Well, I think there's one big one, and it's called fear.
Mm,
Because if you didn't fear something, it wouldn't matter so much to you, right? That's sort of the 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 expressions I've heard recently.
mhm,
If you feel the fear, it's because you really want it, right?
mhm,
And so fear, uh, it can harm us. It can be very damaging to us, but it's also a signal that you're doing the right thing. So that one's actually a big signpost. If you start feeling anxiety over doing something, like the first time I photographed a wedding, even second shot a wedding, I was so nervous I wanted to throw up and turn around, turn the car around, and go home.
What am I
And
doing?
and it wasn't even, and then that whole like, exactly? What am I doing? Like, who am I, like, to do this?
Yeah.
But that was a signal to me that I had to push through that because it was something I really, really wanted. And at the end of that, I came out of there like feeling at the top of the world. So that's the other feeling. When I get off a marketing call with photographers, or when
Mhm,
I deliver a website review, for example, and do a brand audit, and I get some feedback that, like, you hit the nail on the head,
mhm.
like, you totally got me. Um, I walk away like squealing, you know what I mean? And so that's the other signpost that it's good that I walked away feeling like, oh my God, I could do this all day, right?
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and even when we're doing other things, you kind of carry those feelings everywhere, right? So when it's right when you think about it outside of the time that you have to be thinking about it, right?
Mm, mhm.
So marketing is that way for me, which is probably kind of scary for other people, may make them cringe a little. But like, my Audible is filled with business and marketing books,
Oh my
psychology,
gosh.
influence. Like,
Same.
I eat it up. um and
I
so
think
when I
about business literally every second of every day,
yeah.
all the
I mean,
time.
it's always on, right? But if I'm working 24/7, it's okay.
Mhm.
As long as I'm not, but we have to recognize it's not just sitting at your desk, right?
Right.
So I
Yep.
can still be with my family and still have the little intuition,
Mhm.
give me a little tidbit, and I'll just take a minute to, like, open my notes app or whatever,
Uh-huh.
and
Yep.
make a note of it for later. In my journal has turned out to be like, a business book,
Mhm.
essentially, because I'm moving ideas around. I At one point I had a really bad time with this because I had written so many things down, like amazing ideas and things like that. And I have books. I mean, like I have a stack of journals, right? And I was like, where did I write that one idea down?
It's
And
somewhere in here.
oh my God. And I was like, I should have labeled it, right? So I had to go back through like 5 or 6 handwritten, badly handwritten books, trying to find that one idea that I couldn't quite grasp,
Mm-hmm.
to remember. And then from that point forward, if I had an idea that I was writing down in my journal in the morning, I would put a little star at the top of the page and then
Mm,
earmark the page so I could go back to it. And now what I've done is I'm taking a picture of the page from my notes app, right? And putting
nice.
it straight into somewhere else where it will become actionable, right? So, I
Love
mean,
it.
it's just it's always there, but if we recognize that it has a time and a place, but we don't have to shut it off. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Just like we don't have to shut off the love of our family at any point in time in
Mm-hmm.
our day, right? Like when I'm
Right.
working, it's not like, well, maybe I
Yeah, yeah.
can't take care of the kids, but
Right.
it doesn't mean I stop loving them or thinking about them or
Right.
anything like that, right? So we shouldn't feel guilty. I have it in my idea book that I'm going to write a guilt book because you're so right. We have, as soon as we have children, we have guilt for something.
Yeah.
As women in business, we have guilt for
Mm-hmm.
something.
Mm-hmm.
Charging our prices, we have guilt for.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
one day there will be a guilt book, and
A
just
non-guilt book.
just to laugh at ourselves a little, right?
Yes, yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, I love this so much, and if you guys aren't in the habit of like asking yourself questions on the regular, just start. Like I try to some nights I just like end up going to sleep and just not really doing this, but like other nights I really truly try like before I go to bed it's like, okay, is there a question I want to like ask my subconscious tonight while I sleep? Or like what's my intention for sleeping? Like I set my intention for sleeping. I might have a problem. But I'm telling you, my best ideas usually come when I like, wake up kind of early, but then fall back asleep. And that last little section of sleep, like can't tell you how many times I like wake up and I'm like, pen and paper right now,
Right.
and start writing things down.
Yeah.
Um, that's just incredible what's available to us if we're open to just kind of play with it.
Well, this is the thing about putting the pillars together is that you recognize that is in support of your life's work, right? So you don't
Mm-hmm.
dismiss it. So I used to have trouble falling asleep, and then I'd be like, God, I'm gonna wake up tired. I'm gonna have a bad day. Like, I was
You
still
just get
lying
mad.
here.
Yeah.
You get mad, and then once I had the photography epiphany, um, it changed my philosophy on it, and now it's sort of solidified in the 5 pillars. But what happens now is I think to myself, if I haven't fallen asleep yet, that means that there is still a message that needs to
Mm,
come to me. So as soon as it comes to me, I will drift off, and that takes the pressure again off of like or the anger of like not
mm,
being able to fall asleep, and sometimes I fall asleep without actually having a big idea and writing it down, right?
mm-hmm.
Um, but it doesn't mean that the idea didn't come. It just means that some process had to finish. Like when your computer
Mm-hmm.
updates,
Yeah,
some
right.
process had to finish
And sometimes
before
that
the
process
computer.
takes a really long time.
Yes, sometimes it does. Um, but if we realize that it's all towards the life's work, then we realize that there's a reason for it, right? And the other part when you asked about signposts, the other signpost that we know it's right is because it is because it's happening, right? if
Mm-hmm.
if you actually put out a little shingle saying I'm a photographer, and I'm looking for models, or I'm going to start taking money, it's a signpost because it's present in your life. That means
Mm,
that it is because it's there. And
mm-hmm.
so we can also think of it that way, is that if it found its way into our life, like you and I are just talking on this
Mm-hmm.
podcast, it was meant to be because we're doing it. And
Yep.
it's
Yep.
kind of like a really kind of hard concept to get our heads around. But if we start thinking, a little bit more esoterically about it all, or holistically, then it can come very clear. So when we realize that business is not just what we sit down with our intelligence or our wisdom to do, that we have to put our energy into it, that we have
Mm-hmm.
to consider our mindset in it and our body and our intuition, then we start realizing that it all it all fits, right?
Mhm.
And it's all meant to be.
I love it. And this is why you'll see different marketing strategies that work really well for photographer A, but they don't work for photographer B. And
Yeah,
maybe photographer B is better served by these over here. So I think that becomes one of the most challenging pieces for photographers, especially newer photographers, to figure out what their marketing might look like because they think there's this one right only answer
right.
for all businesses. And I think they also get drawn into the thought that, oh, well, I'm just missing this one strategy. Just this one strategy. What's the one strategy? There's certainly some secret strategy that successful photographers are doing that they haven't told me yet. And as soon as I know, I can do that action and boom, and then my
Yeah.
calendar will be full. But
That's sort of, I have a bit of an allergy to the whole give me your best tips and tricks.
yeah.
Because then you have a post of 100 tips and tricks. And when I talk about balance, that's a balancing act. You're just going
Mhm.
through 100 tactics, right?
Mhm.
And you haven't realized that photographer A is in the West Coast, you're on the East Coast. They're serving a luxury market, you're serving a middle market.
Mhm.
They're 10 years in, you're 1 year in. You have to evaluate and knock down each one of those. And what a time consuming activity that is. So this whole tip and trick, your best strategy, what you wish you would have known before, it's helpful when you
Mhm.
need to sort of bounce some ideas, or if you feel kind of like you don't know where to go.
Mhm.
But it's really a lot of wheel spinning, right?
Mhm.
So I really encourage people when they say, "What's your best tip?" I'm like, think about what your best tips are. Like, it's not very helpful, but they could go to my website and find more help on how to figure that out. But if you think about who you are, what kind of business you want to run,
Mhm.
what you want clients to walk away with, how you would like to serve them, then your tips and tricks and your strategies come out of that. And that is
Mhm.
absolutely the most effective way to create your marketing plan. So it might involve, half of or more of the things that you learned on the thread of the tips and tricks,
Mhm.
but the thing is that it's how you do it, right? So this person uses Instagram and they post 5 times a week, and but you just can't get there, right?
Mhm.
It probably means that you should listen to your intuition and say you are not a 5 day a week Instagram poster, and maybe you're a less per week Instagram poster,
Mhm.
and maybe you're more of a Pinterest poster. But when they don't listen to their own internal workings and they
Mhm.
just do, so you start posting 5 times a week on Instagram, and then you're like, I'm still not getting
Yes,
any
why is this not
bookings.
working?
Why
Right.
isn't this working? And that's really a signal that you have to go within rather than looking
Mhm.
externally. So
Mhm.
it's a really important point to remember, is that, yeah, we all look for it though, right? We all look
Mhm.
for the quick fix, the one thing. um, but really the answers are inside.
Yeah, I love it. Are there any external best strategies though that you see that kind of are an undercurrent thread amongst some of the most successful strategies that people are using? Like for instance, like connecting with actual humans, or just kind of different things of I don't know, just any kind of common denominators that you see are at the root of a lot of success that people have.
Yeah, I mean, there are, just like a five-pillar approach to marketing, there are pillars that underpin our success. And so it's really, when you think about, say, food, there are, food groups,
Mhm.
but how you
Mhm.
put those all together in a recipe is very unique. And it could vary, there could be thousands of variations, right? So it's really about creating a recipe that works with some very base ingredients. And some of the base ingredients are that you need to have sort of a handle on photography, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So knowing how to use your camera,
Mhm.
understanding your settings, um, having a voice as an artist and a vision, that's really important. So that's a pillar, right,
Mhm.
of success, is to constantly learn your craft and improve your craft. The other pillar is knowing who your client is. right?
Mhm.
So if we don't want everybody, and like if like you're not friends with everybody in life,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
You'll
right.
meet people and you'll be friends with some people and not with other people. It's the same in business. We gravitate towards a certain type of person. So understanding who you want to work with and how you want to work with them. So uh, the the strategy there is to really understand who you are in relation to how do you
Mhm.
serve others, right? Um, it it doesn't have to be really complicated, but that's like a major pillar. And then we use a lot of the same strategies, having a good professional website that has a good solid brand.
Mhm.
That's really important. But how we do it is more crucial than what we do, right? So the basics should be there, and that's a website. That's, yes, connecting with people.
Mhm.
Um, it could be how you want it, though. So some people are like, you have to get on a phone call, with people, because if you have anxiety over that, eventually you have to meet them. So
Right,
one
right.
might think, like, if you can't do the phone call, what? But some people are better in person than they are on a phone
Mhm.
call, right? It feels kind of awkward or forced, right? So you can work within sort of the limitations that you have, but the key is to know your limitations, right? Mindset is huge. So recently I have become very obsessed with some of the sports documentaries that I've
Mhm.
seen, like tennis, cycling, golf, even
Mhm.
golf. I'm like, I never thought I'd be interested in golf, but there's a great golf documentary circulating out there now. And the biggest takeaway from the success of all of these athletes, these like
Mhm.
ultra successful, top of their game athletes, is mindset. The
Mhm.
game is played in their heads before
Mhm.
it ever gets on any golf course or any court or any um, racetrack or anything like that. It's absolutely one of the most common threads ever. So knowing your craft, educating yourself on marketing strategies, knowing who your client is, all fine and good. If your mindset is not in the right place,
Yeah, if you don't believe it's possible, nothing's gonna work.
yeah. So I call the mindset pillar the great success maker or annihilator of our
Mm.
wisdom or intelligence pillar. So our
Mhm.
wisdom or intelligence runs our business, right? And the mindset is absolutely the biggest ingredient that will affect that one. And
Mhm.
if our mindset is um, not where it needs to be, that we will let the fear stand in the
Mhm.
way, right?
Mhm.
And then that just puts a big stop sign in front of your progress, right? So mindset absolutely is it cannot be ignored. So a lot of times educators and marketers, they talk about mindset, as an obstacle here or there, but for me it's absolutely the biggest one. So
Mhm.
it's not something to be taken care of like sort of in the wings, like crying in the shower, whatever it is. I'm not making it. Why couldn't I do this? Why couldn't I stand up for myself? It needs to be a part of our business, absolutely part of our business. Mindset, training, challenging the thoughts that come up for us. We can think actually anything we want. We can think that we're good enough and we can think that we're not good enough. So if I have those two choices, I'll pick the first one. I'd like to think I'm good enough, right? I'm going to believe, right? Nobody's telling me I can't believe that one over the other, right?
Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree more that it's just, I mean, 100% critical. It's like the unseen success factor that once you see it, you can't unsee it. But a lot of people are just looking for that action or just looking for what they need to
Yeah.
do and they think that's the secret. But if you have all this mind trash going on up here, there's just is you're gonna
Yeah.
have a really hard time getting traction.
So that's sort of what I consider to be the secret of ShineSparkle, is
Mhm.
that it's because we focus on one pillar, right? The business pillar, let's say, which is the intelligence or wisdom pillar, to the detriment of others. So
Mhm.
when you don't have your mindset there, then you can't do pricing, right?
Right?
And when your body is exhausted from doing like a marathon of mini sessions for like $20 a pop,
Right.
um, and then you're working well into the night to try and edit those photos because clients are like already, the non-ideal client is already
Uh-huh.
messaging you saying, "Where are my photos?" You're ignoring your body, and then the red flags that we talked about earlier, when we ignore the red flags. So I firmly believe that the Shine Sparkle approach is an actual solution. The people are like, why am I not advancing? Why am I not progressing? Why aren't I booking?
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you look at not just the business, but the other things that surround the business, you will find your solutions in there.
Yeah, I love that. So good. Where can people find more information on Shine Sparkle and yourself and find you online?
Well, they can find me at shinesparklemarketing.com with the E or without the E at the end. Because the L
Nice.
actually in Shine Sparkle, it's spelled without the E because the L at the end is me. So
Oh, yeah.
and people could go to the website and find out exactly what Shine Sparkle means in my about page. I break it down. Um, I'm also working on a document, a guide that takes everybody through the process of my rebrand. Because
Yeah.
that's a big thing for a
Hmm.
lot of photographers. They don't understand how to do it. We talked about the difficulty of understanding what brand is. And so I'm working on a guide that will be ready soon that will take them through that. So they can go to shinesparklemarketing.com. And I'm also on Instagram, but it's a new account, ShineSparkle Marketing. They can follow me there, or they can follow me at Lucy Baum as well. That's my
Okay,
wedding and
perfect.
my photography work.
On Instagram, is there with an E or with no E?
With no E in
Okay,
Shine Sparkle
perfect.
Marketing. And if they go to Lucy Baum, they'll find the link in my
Okay,
bio. Yeah.
perfect. Awesome. Oh my gosh, Lucy, this has been so good. If you guys enjoyed this conversation with Lucy, definitely go tell her on Instagram, send her a DM, go check out her website. She's also just agreed before this to be part of the Hair of the Dog Summit. So now it's official and it's public and you can't back out.
Yay!
So our Hair of the Dog Summit number 5 will actually be happening September 26th and 27th. And it is going to be 2 full days of all business this time. We're going to hold a craft only one in the future. So it's going to be fantastic. Hair of the Dog, or no, www.petphotographysummit if you want to check out details of that.com, petphotographysummit.com. But yeah, oh my gosh, Lucy, this has been so
Wow.
great. I know everyone is going to love this conversation. I just love having conversations like this. So thanks so much for
Me too.
being
I'm
here.
gonna walk away squealing, going like, yay!
Same, same. Oh my gosh, so good. Hope this made you guys squeal too, excitedly ready to, tackle your life and business and be able to look at it from that more holistic approach, and let go of that guilt because work-life balance is a farce.
Way to go. Way to tell it.
I love it. I love it. I'd say it like it is.
We gotta
Anyway,
own it, right?
yes, yeah, for sure. I do remember when I was starting my business, like every once in a while, I'd be like, man, this person working at Starbucks probably doesn't have to think about work later. Because it was just like all consuming,
Yeah,
which was awesome, but then also just feels tiring. But if you can change that, flip that script and reframe it as like, oh no, this is just how it is. And
yeah,
it's okay to say, Psh, I'm going to just watch this show now, just like calm down, brain, for a
yeah.
minute.
And watch a
Um,
sports documentary because they're really
yeah.
inspiring. Oh my god, makes
Yeah.
me feel a little lazy when I watch these top athletes, but,
Yeah, I'm gonna have to
and
watch
some
some of those.
really great lessons there. So if you're gonna watch something.
Yep, I love it. I love it. Or Ted Lasso, we just finished Ted Lasso. That's like my favorite. Oh, anyway, all right, we're gonna wrap this up. Lucy, thank you again so much for being here. Really love this conversation, and we'll see you at the summit.
Thank you. Look
You're
forward to
welcome.
it.
Thank you, thank you. All right, guys, and I will see you next week. Have a good one, everybody.